What is going on, everybody? It is Luke, and today we are going to be going over part 2 of the BuyBotPro for intermediate sellers. Now, of course, you might say, well, what's an intermediate? What's a beginner? What's an advanced? Of course, there's going to be crossovers. It's just as you're evolving through using it as a beginner, what you then should wait more and be aware of as you then transition through the stages. That's what's more important than worrying about, oh, but I do a bit of that as a beginner, or I do a bit of that as an intermediate or an advanced. Fine, everyone's going to be different and everyone's going to use the software differently. I'm just giving my view on what I weight more and what I would be weighting more as I transition and get more experience. So what we're going to do is just jump straight into it. The beginner one obviously was a lot longer a video. This will be a lot shorter because obviously a lot of it would have been touched over in that, and I'll just be going over and refining the stages. So I've just chosen a sort of generic product. I actually purchased this before on Amazon, and I'm just going to go over exactly what I would be aware of. So what we got here is obviously BuyBotPro. So I'm just going to go ahead and click the analyze key now, so that it populates all the data points. And this is just an example. So £5 is what I put in, but just ignore that in terms of it's not a lead to be buying or anything, and I haven't purchased to sell it at for £5. This is an example. So as you are now an intermediate seller, you're probably also going to be looking at being aware that you're going to have to be VAT registered soon, or maybe you already are. So the first thing I would do after I've input the buy price is I'll just double check. I just have a generic 36p prep fee, but yours can be whatever. You can keep it blank if you do your own prep, blah blah blah. A lot of this I'll just leave as it is here. You can get rid of some of these, but again, I don't muck around with too much of it. Nothing here. All I do is to check the prep fees a little bit basically. It's probably sometimes 40p and so on. And what I want to check is that I've got standard accounting on, potentially. So if you're obviously not VAT registered yet, you're going to be using the non-VAT registered. And what you can do is as a quick thing, as you're in that transition stage, maybe you're going to be VAT registered soon. Does that say that you're currently using non-VAT registered? Let's just do this as an example. What you want to do is obviously make sure it's on one time. Make sure you always check that you're actually setting it for the right price. We're going to click the 5. Of course, nothing happens here. The VAT override, nothing. It's blank. You can't even go into it. So what you can see here is, if you look at the profit, it's showing you at 53% ROI and profit 266. Now, a lot of the other pieces of information here I do not look at all. I might use the ASIN to copy it and check, but I might check the IP just quickly and see it's green. But I will only focus really on these two. I don't, occasionally I might look at some of these other pieces of information, but not really. I like to actually use the data down here to give me a better picture. I just want this section for here. Notes is great if you have expired products. So I sometimes just put a little note in if it's going to expire soon, so when I'm just checking what's going on, I can have a quick glance instead of having to go back and forth between different spreadsheets or something. So that's quite nice. So anyway, back to that VAT. You can see, so 266. Now, if you're going to be VAT registered soon, or you're thinking about it, or you want to plan for it, it's always good just to play around with the VAT and standard. So we had like 266 or something profit. Now, obviously, at VAT registered, you're going to have to be paying VAT on this kind of product. It's a 20% product, where before you were not paying. So now this box is open, you can actually just do a comparison. So this is a good play around preparation. And as an intermediate, you won't have to worry, maybe as being VAT registered, but it's important to be aware of what it looks like when things are basically, when you'll have to transition. The worst thing to be doing is waiting and then transition without having any clue. Now you can see here, in this example, of course this is an example, it is still a good buy. But you will find that, let's say you bought this at £8, it can very easily, so if I just change that 20 to 0, you can see, obviously if your margins are a little thinner, it can have a big impact. Now let's say that you literally just get VAT registered and you carry on sourcing, and then you go through it's a lot of work. You really want to be aware of what's good and bad in advance. Even if you're not literally like transitioning the whole stock across until you VAT registered, so you're not literally going, right, this is rubbish until, maybe you're going to sell it up to the day that you do because it's fine. And then you're going to go, right, I know roughly what's good and bad, but it's just to be aware as well what kind of products play with certain things. What I mean by that is that obviously there's this is not a 0%, this is a 20, but let's say this is a food product, which is a 0% product, okay? So this is also on the flip side. So obviously in that scenario, you would be now in a loss. But what you can do, we want to go to non-VAT registered. We want to save. So this is obviously another scenario you can play around with. So this is you now. You're just playing around. You're like, oh yeah, bought it for 5, selling it for this. Good profit. Let's say this is a food product. Now let's actually say, just to make it a little bit more spicy, let's maybe put, so where the margin's a little bit thinner is what we want to find. So let's just put 7. So maybe 6. That's we want it to be roughly on the edge. So yeah, no, 7 would be good. So a lot at 7 as a non-VAT registered seller. So as in a beginner moving to intermediate, looking at the VAT registration process or being aware that it's coming up. This would not be profitable at this current state. So £7 by 17. It's not profitable as a non-VAT registered seller, yeah? Non-VAT registered. Well, it is profitable, but not really, yeah? You're not going to be making a lot of money. You've also got to send in stock, UPS, or however you're sending it, pallets maybe. So it's very low. And you'd probably be like, you know what, it's not worth buying. Whatever happens, whatever the sales, it's just not worth it. Now, if this was a 0% product, this is how it would look. So you remember the profit was basically not worth it. So if we flip it onto the standard, and then what I would always do is I would always manually, and I would always do this for all products that I source. If I am VAT registered or want to see it, I always manually enter in here what the VAT is, rather than relying on the settings to know which one it is, because different products have different VAT settings, one's 0, one's 20, but it doesn't necessarily pick it up properly because whoever created the listing may have not actually set the VAT correctly to say it was 0 or 20, and therefore I will always just manually enter either one or the other to double check. Now let's say that this is a 0% product, yeah, so I would go ahead and put 0 there because I want to make sure it calculates it as 0. Now look at the profit. Oh, you'll see it here. Analyze. Now look at the profit. So this is the same example, but I've just put 0 in now. The product is now profitable, and actually it's pretty decent compared to what it was. And now what? And you might be thinking, well, what happened there? It's because basically when you're VAT registered, you don't pay 20% on the Amazon fees. So let's say the Amazon fees are £10. Amazon will add £2 on. Because they add VAT. Well, that's £2 that you're not going to have to be paying, meaning it will be part of that profit that you're now getting. So it's very, very important to just be aware of that section where you're just doing a bit of a comparison either beforehand, so that you now know that, oh, this is going to be good when I'm VAT registered, yeah? Now, if it's a 20% product, which it is in real life, this product is, it's always going to be worse off for you when you register. So if it's a 20% product, it's very simple. If it's a toy, non-VAT registered sellers will get more profit than a VAT registered seller because I'll have to go and pay an extra 20%. But then on the flip side, anything that's 0%, you'll make more money on. So when you are moving from beginner to intermediate and obviously scaling, selling more, it's worth being aware of, is this going to be profitable in the future? And you could build up a list, I call it the Bible, of products like that, so that when you do register, you can flip over to that. You can just open that book up, grab those 30, 40 ASINs or however many you've collected, and now you know they're profitable. And guess what else it does? It protects you against non-VAT registered sellers. So in this example, not worth selling, yeah? But if it was obviously 0, it is. So what happens is people that are not VAT registered, there's no incentive for them to sell it because they're having to pay too much in fees. They're paying an extra 20% in fees, not worth it. But now that you're registered, you can actually make a bit more profit, therefore it's now worth it. So it's shielding you a little bit away from those more beginner sellers And the good thing about that is that obviously more, newer sellers, beginner sellers are more likely to make mistakes or do things wrong or set the prices too low or not understand something and not understand the bigger picture, just looking to make some sales, because it's nice to have some sales when you're a beginner to get that confidence boost. And so that for me is one of the most important things when you're transitioning from a beginner, because as a beginner you just never need to even worry about that. You're more looking to make sure that the business model works, make some profit, can I do it myself, rather than then looking at the bigger picture for the later on, like the later on period of the journey, of the Amazon journey, where you're going to be having to do it. And again, you might find a good product to buy, but then when it become VAT registered, it's not worth selling. So you can do two, almost like two sides of the coin. You can do this is not profitable, or it's just about profitable, and this is really good. So you might be doing a deal going, it's not worth it next, but that data's valuable, but you should be not just discarding that data, because actually in the future it could be a good product. And so that's something to really be aware of, and not to just discard information freely, because that information can, if it can sell 5 a month, well, that's 12, what is it? I'm being stupid. It's like £11, £2.55. This is how times 5. So 11.25. That's I always do. I gave up years ago working it out for myself. So I always just do a calculator, even though it's sometimes almost like 10 times 10. But anyway, and so it's £11 a month. Also, if you get rid of 100 of those, if you're searching through 100 listings and you're like, no, not worth it. It's £100 a month that you're losing out, just because you're just chucking £100 out the bin, in the bin. And so this is money. Like, data is money. And so that's something that you really need to be aware of. And obviously, once you are VAT registered as an advanced seller, you already know, and you don't really have to be playing around with it. But as an intermediate, you have to look at both sides of the coin, the beginner side, because you are transitioning from that, and then the later on advanced. Obviously, that'll be another video. So that is definitely to be made aware of for people that are looking to do that. And again, you won't really need to necessarily, you can glance this, but you'll understand what each of these mean as you transition to an intermediate seller. And so you don't have to worry too much about wondering, oh, what's this, what's all this. Again, discounts I leave. I just don't touch discounts. I don't add anything in. I'll always see that as an extra. But you could, if you're getting 10% off, you could just put in 10%, but I usually like to just work it out first for myself. So I just work out the buy price after the discount and just ignore that. Again, I mentioned the notes. I don't even export the data. I don't do any of that. My VA usually just handles all that side anyway. And this is something you should start to not be as focused on. As a beginner, this is quite important to be like a final check to see if things are working well. But I find that, you still want to make sure this is giving you the right indicators, but it's not as important because you're now overriding a lot of these data points with your experience more than anything. Because an example could be, let's say we were making £1 profit. So I'm going to go ahead and just put in 8. It's coming up as 0. Yeah, £1.25. Well, let's say that this product costs £3 to buy. Now it doesn't, but let's say it did, or £5, and it sold, and you could sell 1,000 a month. Yeah. Yeah, so you could have something, just work it out. So you're making £1.25, and so you get £1,250 profit a month, and it costs you five grand to do that. But you could do it every month, or you could do it, say in Q4, it's a Q4 product, you could sell 5,000. And so really, it's not taking into consideration certain factors to give you this. And even here, it tells you the sales. Well, look at it, 2,000. So if you could actually get all those sales for some reason, and you're making £1.25, do you not want to, do you not think that's good if you have the cash? But it doesn't really take into consideration. If you've got £1 million in the bank, why wouldn't you want to do that? Can you get what I mean? So that's why you have to use that enough, but also be aware where it has its downfalls. And again, Estimate sales you can use, but I like to use the BuyBotPro Keeper integration to do that. This you can use as a double, a quick, like, are you even in the right ballpark? If I think 90 and it says 3,000, clearly there's some issue there. It's just to make sure that it's within the right area. So, for example, if I say 1,000 and it says 2,700, we're in the right area. It's in the thousands. It might actually be that it does sell 5,000 a month. It could be that it sells 1,000, my guess, or it could be that it sells in the middle, about 2,700. But that's something you have to test by selling the product and building up and just analyzing and building up the data points from your actual sales to get a better representation, as this is only an estimate based on historical data, which doesn't necessarily predict future outcomes. And again, I always glance this. I just want to make sure there's no crazy, really mental seller. If there was this guy here at the top, ignore Amazon if they weren't on the listing, but if this guy's at the top and you could see he was really quite aggressive with the price, it's probably more like that. It's not very likely that this price will ever really go up much more than this, because he'll always probably have a lot of stock at the cheapest. And so if there's, if this pricing was not here and Amazon weren't here, I can see that there's a lot more room for price movement, which gives me that little bit of confidence that if I sell this for a couple of months, this product, I'll probably not only sell it at the lowest price, but also in the middle and also at the upper, because it moves around a lot, because the stock levels are not so like jam packed in here. It's similar to like the order book on trading. It's like if someone has £1 billion sitting at this price, well, to get that person gone so the market can move freely a bit more, it takes a lot of buying. 218 people have got to buy this for £20, so it takes a lot of money to get the guy gone, so that the market, or it works in the same. The market of the asset, or in this case, this product, can then move around more, which means that the price is more likely to be moving, which is good for if you want to buy it cheaper, or if you want to buy it more expensive, or if you want to sell something more expensive. But yeah, so this guy, potentially could cause a slowdown in price movements, and that's something to be aware of. That I like. Definitely, if you're looking to buy maybe quite a bit of stock, but you can only really, you really don't want to sell it less than £20.80. It's probably not good to be buying a lot, because this guy here is here. So really, you have to accept that you're going to have to sell it at £19.80. Yeah. Again, I don't really take too much attention to this, not to this, not to this. You can integrate it with BuyBotPro. That is something that you should be probably using as an intermediate, maybe some repricing. And you're able to basically just save into BuyBotPro with your break-even, minimum, maximum, and your strategy, and basically put it in when you're buying a product, and it will automatically populate into the software, or you can go in manually and do it yourself. I actually do it manually. I do a lot of things manually, to be honest. Not like prep or anything like that. Of course, I have my VAs that help. But when it comes down to something like this, I like to be hands-on. I like to go and check the listing the day it books in, check the pricing, and then work it out again as a fresh update, rather than update it all, send it in. 2 weeks later, it starts selling, but I don't now know what it's starting to sell at when it books in. I like to get a fresh look, and that's why a lot of things I do manually, because I like to get it like a live update of what's going on for that position before I move on. And again, the last thing is this. So as an intermediate seller, the things that I'll first jump on is all time. Now, the one thing I would be aware of is this gap here. Now, let's see. Okay, luckily, I know what this is. So if you normally see something like this is a big red flag that there's been some sort of issue, because realistically, this line should join. It should just be consistent. It shouldn't be crazy fluctuations. There can be some. You can see here, Amazon, when they go out of stock, more people are selling because people don't have a lot of stock. So this guy will get sold, this guy will sell, and you can see there's little gaps here and there's fluctuation. So that's fine. But here, now actually, because normally what happens is this could be like a intellectual property violation, policy warning. Now, of course, potentially you could lead to your accounts being suspended. So if I ever see that, usually I will not, unless I can identify why, I will not sell a product. It's just not worth it. You can make money short term, but if you lose your account in 6 months, then what's the point? But actually, if you look here, it's Dettol wipes, and it was at the beginning of COVID. And what happened with most products? Stuff sold out, and it went out of stock. So not only Amazon sold out, but it just, you can see the BSR went to 200, just went down, 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 but there was no one here, and this kind of thing would have been snapped up like crazy. So that was a check mark. I know what caused that. And I just like to look at this because, that's to say Amazon were not there. I know that Amazon are, but that's to say they weren't. You can just look at I normally look at the trend line. So this is the all-time. I just go, what's the lowest price it's ever sold at here? Okay, just 2 blips, not really consistent. Even if we just take this, because this is like years and years of data. Let's just go. Most of the time, the average price is around 16.09. The craziest price that I would never ever believe it probably did sell at £80 actually when it was around the COVID time, but again, you can't really take that into consideration because it's never going to happen. The exact situation, not never going to happen, but the exact situation that caused this, it's not going to occur. And if it does, well, it's like gambling, isn't it? It's like, yeah, it might happen in 6 years, but it might not. That's not really the game you're playing. Just look for averages. So just draw a line in the middle here and go, okay, it's about 20 quid. You can even see 20, drew a line. Doesn't have to be perfect, which is about what that guy's at, yeah? But you could also go, what's the lowest, what's the upper? What's the lower average, what's the average, and what's the upper? And that is the sell price that I would mentally have to play around with in my head. So you could even go through here, what would the lower aspect of it be, what would the higher aspect of it be, and just work out. Because if you're trying to sell this a little bit more longer term, maybe not just for like 10 sales, then you probably will have some price fluctuations over time, which will mean that you might sell a little lower, but then you might sell a little higher. And this is the stuff to be aware of. And it's not necessarily to do this on every product, because you may, as an intermediate, may not be still selling loads, but it's just making yourself aware of these things, so that when you do become an advanced seller, I guess, experienced, or whatever you want to call it, this is something you're doing day to day, but you need to be aware at the beginning to get yourself into position. So I'm going to leave the video there, because that is everything that I would touch as an intermediate seller. Taking what you've taken from the beginners, also discarding what you don't use anymore, adding a couple of extra layers. I don't look at a lot of this stuff. I just take what I now know is to be more important and what works for me. Now, things that may work for you may be different to me, so again, use what you feel works for you. But just I'm trying to broaden horizons for people that are interested to know what I look at and why. So I'm going to leave it there, everyone. Hopefully you got some interesting tips from this video, and obviously there'll be a part 3, which is advanced, going over everything. I'll almost do like a walkthrough of me going through what I'm going to be looking at, rather than picking things here for you to do. Have a nice day, everyone. Have a nice weekend, and I'll see you on the next one.